Morning and welcome to the Return to Food 7-Day Challenge. It's been a very interesting morning of technology. It's actually starting a half hour late because 3 times I couldn't get onto the Google Hangouts. It would only load to 99%. And just to let you know that I have actually been talking for about 20 minutes and not recording. And because there's only one person on the call, it was really important for me to start again to do this. So for those of you who tried to get on the call this morning, huge apologies. Not sure what's happening. Google Hangouts is still a bit of a mystery to me. I was talking with Chansey, one of the Return to Food coaches last night, who had technical difficulties with Google Hangouts, and I said, I think Google Hangouts is a woman. Because I still haven't completely figured her out. She's still a bit of a mystery to me. So I apologize for those who weren't able to get on, and for those of you who are just chiming in now, because I'm actually starting my Google Hangout all over again. And it's a real pity because I thought I was on a real roll and having some really good things happening there. So hopefully I can recreate it. So welcome to the Return to Food 7-Day Challenge. This is day 3, and day 3 we are covering salts. And there's some really interesting things in your dashboard today, things I'm really excited about for you to share, to participate in, and things that I'm really pleased that I think this is an interesting day for the experience. It's Wednesday, which is the middle of the week for a lot of people. If you're working full-time and you're at a job, or your life centers around the work week, this is what they call hump day. And so today's a little bit more of a gentle day. What you'll find in your dashboard is there is the intro video, there is the video on salt. The recipe for the day is the glory dressing with zoodles, and Return to Food coach Ashley Joyce is preparing that. She was in the Return to Food kitchen after the retreat on Bowen Island, and we filmed her filming one of her favorite recipes from Return to Food. And we also have an interview with Dr. Jason Marr that I did. Now, Dr. Jason Marr is a naturopathic doctor, and I'm a big fan of preventative medicine, which is why I'm a great fan of naturopaths over the typical kind of MD model, as they tend to be more preventative and treat the root cause as opposed to the symptoms. And Dr. Jason Marr and I were colleagues at the Institute of Holistic Nutrition, and I always found him a delight to deal with. And he's very intelligent, and I hope you'll enjoy that in video as well. Just want to point out too, with the audios today, we've basically made sure that you can download all of the audios, and just by right-clicking on them, and we have the intro, the salt, the glory dressing, everything is actually in an audio for you, so you can actually take that away and listen to it on your portable devices. And the meditation today is about self-preservation. Now, as you would know, salt has been used for thousands of years as a form of preserving things. And so I thought it would be very fitting today that we actually work on self-preservation as the meditation, as it is nature's #1 law that we need to abide by as humans. We need to have our basic needs met in order for us to actually then move on to self-actualization. And as a species, we're very fortunate to be able to not just exist, but to be able to go to that place of self-actualization. We have that to always keep moving towards. What you'll find too, your activity sheets, you'll have the slides, you'll have the salt sheet, and then you've got the greatest little recipe book, and that's a few different zoodle recipes, so you've got that to enjoy. And there's more than one recipe today, but it's the one that's featuring the zoodles, the glory dressing, zoodles with the glory dressing that Ashley's demoing for us. And today our natural detox botanical remedy strategy is a lemon Epsom salt bath. And this is something that was gifted to me in the sense that I had a girlfriend many years ago when I was going through a difficult patch in my life, a very tough time, where she came over and she took great care of me. One of the things she did was she poured a bath, and she cut about 5 lemons up. She squeezed them into the bath, and the bath had Epsom salts into it, and then she put the lemon halves in the bath. And then she set up candles for me and she had me go into the bath. And the lemon actually works really well to detoxify the body. If you're not crazy about, halves of lemons, you can squeeze up or slice up thin slices and squeeze them in the bath while you're in there, or even just put lemon oil into the bath if you're a bit squeamish. But I highly encourage you to actually put those whole lemons in there. And you can use the lemons as a body scrub. It's really, really good for the body. And the Epsom salts are high in magnesium. And if you're used to the lethal recipe, or you're really wanting to get away from sugar and things like that, you'll find that over years, sugar and the lethal recipe will deplete magnesium from the body. And so Epsom salt bath is a great way to actually get some magnesium back into your body. And it's a wonderful thing to do late at night, as opposed to during the day so much, unless you really need to go have a nap afterwards, because it will relax the system. So much so that you could easily fall asleep. So just to know that that lemon Epsom salt bath is a wonderful thing to do if you're experiencing any kind of difficulties in your life, or you're just struggling through the process of making choices and making different changes in your life. So lovely little tip there. And one of the things I wanted to share, the video also today covering one of the principles from nature, from Return to Food, is nature's principle. It's the cornerstone philosophy to the book. It's the first one that really helped me eliminate confusion around nutrition, was to actually look at the hierarchy in which nature presents what it is we're meant to be eating in the amounts we need it. So air being our most primary nutrient, water being our second most primary life-dependent nutrient, and the abundance of them is in nature it shows you the quantities we need them in by how easily they're obtained in nature and when they're obtained in nature. So that's one of my favorite philosophies. It's kind of the first, and I think you will really enjoy it. I think there's some juicy bits in there for you to take advantage of. So I'm going to cover a few things today. One, I'm going to talk about that lemon Epsom salt bath and how it relates to the consumption concept. I'm going to talk a little bit about salt, and I'm going to talk about self-preservation and resistance. So all of these things that I want to cover in the call today. And please, by all means, feel free to type your questions into the chat room. I'm just going to, double check and see. There we go. Yeah, so I've said good morning. If you have questions, by all means, feel free to type them into the chat. So I'm going to start off with just talking a little bit about salt and the significance. Of the lethal recipe, it's probably the least notorious ingredient of all the lethal recipe ingredients. And because of that, we can often get a bit complacent about how it can be problematic in the body when we're eating it out of context of nature. So one of the first things to understand is that 70% plus of the salts that we're eating are highly processed, and they come from processed foods. And that processed salt has a very different effect on the body than natural salts do, because the 84 minerals have been removed. It's just one mineral, sodium chloride, which never occurs. It doesn't occur in nature, just sodium chloride on its own. It always has other minerals with it. And modern food processing has taken those minerals out because they can then sell those minerals. And they've left salt in a very different state to how it would be in nature. And so when we eat it, again, it has a different impact on our body. So that's part of the things that we're actually going to cover in the video, as well as some strategies to replace salt from the diet, and a challenge around that. The challenge today is to pick a week. Might be this week, might not be this week, but the challenge is to pick a week and not eat one meal out. Now, for some of you, that might be totally easy. If you're already familiar with Return to Food, or you're well and truly on the holistic path, it's going to be super easy for you. And some people, it's going to be really challenging. And I would encourage you to do it, because when you abdicate responsibility for your food, as in outsourcing it, all kinds of stuff happens, as you'll find out in the video. So that's the challenge. Now, the meditation is on self-preservation And the significance around that is obviously salt has been used for millennia as a preservative so that we can actually keep food when it was abundant and keep it for when it was scarce. And that was really helpful to humanity to be able to preserve our food. It made a big difference in our evolution and survival rates and our ability to then move on to other things like self-actualization. And so the meditation around preservation is self-preservation, and self-preservation is nature's #1 rule. And if you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, pyramid hierarchy of needs, it's really important that we take care of our basic needs. So air, our water, shelter, food, safety, and security. And sometimes what can happen is when we have a lot of those things taken care of, we can become a little bit complacent about really engaging in extreme self-care and taking care of ourselves from a really loving place. And so the meditation today is really about that self-preservation, to create healthy boundaries around yourself, to be able to do the things that you need to do. I'm not explaining this brilliantly, forgive me. Often when we allow people to come into our boundaries, because we live in a culture of nice, and we will say yes to things when our body and our life is screaming no. And one of the things that's really important around self-preservation is that we actually get really centered and we allow that time for quiet within our life to know what's really important. Now, I'm not talking about, someone's, in a stream, they're in a lake or something and they're drowning and they're asking for you to throw a stick in to save them, and you just don't feel like, or you don't have time. That's obviously ridiculous and extreme. I'm talking about that you wouldn't jump in to save the drowning person if you don't know how to swim, because you put the stick in and then you'd help them. And sometimes we are in our own lives really struggling with a lot, and we're not actually able to help other people, but we'll say yes anyway, and it depletes us even more. Now, there is a fine balance, and I'm not talking about being completely selfish, as once we have our basic needs met, one of the things that's really important as a human being is to be able to help other people. So it's about finding that balance, and that's what the meditation is about. The other thing that I want to talk to you about today is resistance. And often when we are moving on a path of trying to get rid of the old and bring in the new, or reestablish healthy behaviors around food, what can actually happen is something kind of weird and quirky. Now, it may not happen to you, but it happens to me. And it's almost like once I step into this place of wanting to be good, and have a halo, and do the right thing, I can actually experience resistance in the form of wanting the food that I'm eliminating even more than when I chose not to, when I was eating it quite freely. So for you, what's going to happen sometimes is you're going to have resistance about implementing some things within the challenge. Some of the foods, you're going to be attached to some things more than the other. And you might have resistance that draws you back to eating things that aren't really serving you. And in that place, you want to just kind of surrender and understand that it's often a natural thing that we want to do, is to indulge when we're restricted. And it's really important at this time to come about this from a really powerful place of not, I can't have this, I shouldn't have this. Because those are kind of the things that often create a lot of resistance, is when you can't and should. And to switch it to a place of power to say, I can have this, but I choose not to. So your resistance, it can be lessened by it when the control's taken away from us, when we say I can't have it and I shouldn't have it. When you're going through the challenge and you're giving up refined sugar and you're giving up refined salt and you're giving up refined oils and grains and all those things, and people will say, oh, would you like this? Don't say I can't have it. Or definitely don't say to anyone else, oh, you shouldn't eat that. because that brings up a lot of resistance for other people. You may have noticed already. What's really powerful is to say, I'm choosing not to eat that right now. And not from a place of self-judgment or projecting that judgment onto other people, but just from a deep place of wanting to take care of yourself. And the other thing is, often when you're eating out with people, this is a trick that I used to teach, well, this is going back about 10 years ago now. I started teaching this, is when you're out eating with people and you are making that decision, or even just, if you're invited over, and instead of saying, I should have this or I shouldn't have that, go towards what it is you feel like. So I will say, I just really feel like a salad. I just really feel like a soup. I just really feel like some water. I don't really feel like wine. Because people can't argue with your feelings. And it also takes it away from the head of the, can't, should, judgment, all that kind of stuff. And it really taps into what it is that your body really wants. Okay, really get centered, in the gut and the heart. And you'll get this with the meditation today, is to really get centered in those things and start to make choices from a place of what it is you truly feel like. And remember, that thing about discipline is remembering what we want. It's also choosing things from a place of what we want to feel like. So sometimes you might actually feel like the chocolate cake, and yet you'll say to yourself, you know what? I really feel like I want to wake up feeling clear-headed tomorrow. I really feel like I want to have more energy throughout the day, and I don't want to go through that slump. And so I'm going to actually choose to have something that is going to elicit that feeling. So I'm going to have a salad because I really feel like feeling good, even if you can't bring yourself to say, I really feel like a salad, if you don't. To know what it is that you want to feel like and know what kind of foods you're going to choose to elicit the feelings that you want. So that can be a helpful tool in fighting the resistance. Now, one of the things I want to share with you, because the detox solution today is the lemon Epsom salt bath. And this lemon Epsom salt bath is something that was gifted to me in the sense of a learning experience when I had a dear friend in Australia come visit me from Sydney. Her name's Gina. And I was going through a very difficult time in my life, very difficult time. And it was a breakup, happens. And she came over and she really took care of me. She did a few things around the house and she put some incense around. But one of the things I have a deep visceral memory about how healing it was a lemon Epsom salt bath. So she poured the bath just perfect at temperature. She put about a half a cup of Epsom salts in, and she took about 5 lemons, cut them in half, and squeezed them into the bath. Seeds and peel and all, and she put the halves in the bath. They were floating around in the bath. And there were some candles, and it was just really relaxing and lovely. But I could really feel it detoxifying my system, not just physically, but energetically. And you can use the lemons to scrub as a scrub against your body, and that beautiful lemon oil will actually, permeate your body. And lemons are super, super healthy for us. They're great for actually drinking, in the morning, or lemon water, and they're also good for us externally. So I hope you enjoy that. I hope you get to enjoy a lemon bath, if not today, at some point during the challenge, because it is something that, as we're going through the difficulty with the attachment to certain foods, making changes, and it's even more challenging when we're living in households with other people who aren't there, aren't interested, don't get it, would like to even see us not eat the nature's principle, and they want us to eat the lethal recipe because they want us to collude, because when you're actually eating according to nature and they're eating the lethal recipe, it's a mirror and shining up about what they're not doing. And when we're having something that's toxic and addictive, it's very natural as humans to want to share and have other humans collude with us. So be gentle on other people too while you're actually going through the challenge, and try not to project too much stuff onto them and judgment onto them, and really do this from a deep place of self-love. So when you're going through these difficult times, and it will be challenging on many levels, no matter whether you're living alone or you're living with a family, or even if you're all on the same path. There are challenges that come around our food choices. And this lemon detox bath is just a wonderful little tool to step into that space of self-love and self-preservation. It physically does detox the body. I believe energetically it helps detox the body. And also the Epsom salts are wonderful because when we've been on the lethal recipe, when we're eating the lethal recipe, it can really deplete the body from magnesium. And because Epsom salts are high in magnesium, it's a wonderful thing to also do to restore magnesium to the body. And also I'd highly recommend that you do this, you have the Epsom salt bath when you know you're going to sleep. So whether you're just, you're in a state or something and you know you need to have a nap, it's a great thing to do before a nap, and it's a great thing to do before bed. So that's just a lovely little piece around the lemon Epsom salt bath. The last thing that I want to share with you is, I'm a little bit early to share this, but because of the lemon Epsom salt bath, I want to share a teaser for the consumption concept. Now, the consumption concept is another cornerstone philosophy in Return to Food. It's the one I gave the TED Talk on in Tokyo in 2009. And it's definitely talking about food, but sorry, I just had, got it. Okay, sorry, my calendar flashed up and wouldn't allow me to do anything except click OK. Okay, so consumption concept. When it comes to food and eating, it's basically saying that if we had to source all of our own food in nature, we'd all be eating completely differently, including me. And that as we've moved away from supplying our own food, the less healthy we've actually got, because we're now no longer eating in context of nature. So one of the things that often comes up when people are starting to make more food for themselves is the resistance will come up in the form of, this is too much work. This is usually before they're actually doing it. Once they get into it, it's not so much a problem. But when they're making the decision, they're like, do I really want to do a challenge? Do I really want to, change my eating habits? That means I'm going to have to prepare all these foods from scratch. And it can seem hard if all you've been used to doing is opening up packets, or stirring things, or heating it, or even worse, microwaving it, just popping it in the microwave. Put unhealthy food in the microwave, and you end up with something really, really toxic. Might taste good, might be stimulating all your faculties because of how that food's designed, but it's actually sucking life force and nutrients from you. So the decision to actually choose to make a new way of actually being can indeed be challenging for us. But the truth is getting really good high quality food that you're not growing yourself has never been easier in human history. So I can go to the farmer's market and get all this produce that people have literally labored for months, in the cold and in the rain, and they've watered it and they showed up daily, and they're actually, they're putting their energy into it, and they're taking care of it. And you can really see that in certain produce as you go along. And so for us to actually make food from scratch, it's never been easier in human history. It's just when we compare it to opening up a packet, and as human beings, we are naturally prone to find the quickest, easiest, fastest route to getting stuff done. It's really compelling to do that. So we're kind of switching it around. So I had an experience recently that brought the concept of the consumption concept home to me, who I've been, talking about this for many years now. It was very illuminating in the respect of that consumption concept doesn't just apply to our food, it applies to everything in life, and how as we've moved away from supplying things for ourselves, we make very different choices. So if we're not building a house ourselves, we will often build it bigger than we need it. If we're not building a house ourselves or heating a house ourselves physically by having to go out and chop the wood for the materials to build it, the materials to keep it, we will build a house bigger than what we would ever dream of you know, chopping down the wood to heat, to keep warm. So the consumption concept takes over in every area of our life. And the further we move away from nature, the less the healthy we become, to be quite honest. So recently in Vancouver, there was a serious power outage due to a storm. And we were without power for 36 hours. And in some places, there was like 500,000 people that were out of power for days. And it really brings home how dependent we are on electricity and also technology, the big one. So I was at home alone, and I decided to have a bath because I still had gas. And I have big pots, huge pots, like you can not just fit a baby, but a toddler and maybe even two sitting in it. And I put, not all of them that big, but I have pretty big pots, large capacity. And I would fill them up with water and take them to the stove, which, you know, compared to just turning on the tap for a bath, for hot water, is a lot more effort. And I filled them up, and then I had to walk them over to the bath, and often kind of spilling a few times, so I had to clean that up as well. I had to be really careful with it. And then pouring them into the bath, hot boiling water, you want to be really careful. And I did that with the 3 pots 3 times. And it was a lot of work. And even then, I only filled up the bath about 1/3. And then when I topped it up with cold water to create, you know, a temperature that I could actually bathe in, it was only half full. And what it did for me was it made me realize that that was just getting water from the tap, boiling it and putting it into the tub. That's not me going out to the creek and getting the water and bringing it like all that distance from the creek, you know, to my stove and then chopping down the wood to heat the stove, to then boil the water and then taking it over to my bath. So a bath for most of human history was a complete and utter luxury. And what it did for me was it brought home the concept for very much. And that was just a half bath. 3 pots, huge pots, 3 times, back and forth, back and forth. It took me almost an hour to run my bath, right? And when I sat in that bath, I luxuriated in it. And I had this whole new consciousness. And I've thought of this before. It's not the first time that I've thought of it. And it's not the first time I've actually boiled water to heat up a bath. But it brought a new appreciation for the fact that I have running water at my convenience, that I can just turn on and it's hot. And it also made me realize how seldom I would actually do this in nature if I had to do it. So I just want you to, when you do have your lemon Epsom salt bath, to really understand and appreciate what an incredible luxury it is. When you buy your organic vegetables from the farmer's market, to understand how incredibly blessed you are that you have someone else who's willing to plant the seed, take care of it, go out in the wind and the rain and the sun and consistently show up to take care of that vegetable, that's willing to take the risks to grow it without any chemicals. We are incredibly blessed in the countries that we're living in if we're able to do this. And today, going out into the world, when you have the materials that you're about to look at, when you have the materials that you actually get to use to feed yourself, to clothe yourself, to bathe yourself, to have a renewed appreciation for how incredibly blessed we are. When you start to come at this work in the 7-day challenge from that place of deep gratitude, deep awareness, and also just an awareness of your footprint and how that impacts the world, it will actually change your interaction with food, and a privilege it is to actually participate in something like this. Okay, so Trevor says here, he says, you've made so much information available to us each day that 1, I don't know where to start. 2, I feel as though I'm falling behind and missing what I need. How to prioritize? Great question. Perhaps I need to just do the meditation, which I haven't done yet, and not worry about it. Awesome. Awesome question. and awesome solution that you've come up with. So I wanted to create the challenge that was jam-packed with information that you could have ongoing. So you don't have to do everything today. And I think the meditation is a great way to start, Trevor, to just really immerse yourself into that place of self-preservation and then tap into that knowing of what it is that you want to access for that day. So I would say the meditation is great to start off with. And if you were to do only one thing, it would be, beyond that would be the video on the lethal recipe ingredients. So for today, that is salt. Yesterday it was fine grains, and Monday it was sugar. So if you can just do those things, those two things each day, that you're in good stead. And remember, you have all that information to go to at any time, and there's no pressure. The idea with the challenge was to create a lot of value and jam pack it, but not to think that you only have 7 days to absorb all of this, that you can actually go back to the materials time and time again. So does that answer your question sufficiently? I'm just gonna go here. Feel as though I'm falling behind, missing what I need. Okay. So yes, first part definitely answered. Where to start meditation. You answered your own question. That's awesome. And that whole thing around feeling behind is, I just encourage you, okay, just encourage you to relax and to move into the space of knowing and trusting your body. And the meditation is really great for recalibrating what it is that we absolutely need. And to really, the foundation of everything is self-love. And that you don't have to do anything. Just by showing up for a Google Hangout, just by doing the meditation, just by watching even one of the videos or listening to one of the audios, you will be doing more than you did last week on this day around this topic. So get to that, place again of appreciation and gratitude for just even being there to show up. So I'm aware now that the Google Hangout has gone a half hour, and I'm going to wrap things up now. I just want to wish you an awesome day. Hope you have a wonderful day. Remember, if you have questions that you weren't able to get to the Google Hangout for, there's always the Facebook page. What I'd also love you to do on the Facebook page is to share a little bit of your journey, as some of you are already doing. Get involved, be part of the conversation, ask questions. Also share what you prepared, recipes. So Chansey shared her beautiful heart-to-heart salad, and Gina shared her lunch, the lunches that she was actually getting ready and making in her mason jars for the week. And I look forward to seeing your creations and your recipes. The important thing is to do every bit of this with love. And Trevor says, yes, and thank you. So thank you, Trevor, for your question. It was awesome, because I know you're not the only one who has this. We all tend to do this kind of thing to ourselves. And yeah, so I'll see you on the Facebook page. And if not before, I'll see you tomorrow on the Google Hangout. Thank you so much. Enjoy your day.